was a time when I wondered if the mid-sized church would even survive. I saw a place for the house church, the small church, and then the megachurch. So this was many, many years ago, 20 years ago, when I was kind of first beginning church research. I'm glad I did not publish what I was thinking because I would have been wrong. I think that there's even more opportunities for the mid-sized church today than there ever has been. And I think that they have a lot of advantages. We're going to be talking about that on today's episode of Rainer on Leadership. And before we get into the topic matter, I certainly want to thank our sponsor, California Baptist University, one of the most beautiful college campuses on the planet out there in the Riverside, California area. Great area of California. And they have a new program, Dad. They have an organizational leadership degree now, and this is a good one, much needed. I absolutely love this. It's an online program, and it's designed with the working professional in mind, and it will equip you with sought after leadership skills that are essential to the success of you and your church staff. So it's good for church staff, it's good for business people, it's really good for anyone. And you need to go check this out. It is at calbaptist.edu. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. They've got several degree programs, both undergraduate and graduate, that can be done online. I like this one in particular. I'm glad that they are highlighting it. You should go give it a look. So thank you, California Baptist University.
You did a lot of that type of study in your PhD.
I enjoy organizational leadership. I enjoy organizational management, both, and there's a lot of overlap between the two, but a lot of pastors who are very good at what they do. This is one area that they lack. So if it is something that interests you, you should go check it out.
So basically, a pastor who has a theological degree would do well to even consider doing this additional undergraduate degree.
Yeah, everyone's got a different story and everyone's got a different background, and I get that. But I think one of the best combos to have is a business degree with a theological degree if you're going to be a pastor, because you kind of need both.
Which happens to be what the four Rainers have.
I'm a bit biased. It's the path that I took, so of course I think it's a good one to take.
Thom, Sam, Art, Jess, all of the above.
Yeah, but let's talk about the mid-sized church here, Dad, because you've got smaller churches that have gotten some attention. You've got large churches which have gotten a ton of attention. There's not a lot of people writing books about the mid-sized church, but really, I think the mid-sized church is one of the if you're talking about church size, the one that really has a lot of distinct advantages. You've pastored a mid-sized church. I've pastored a mid-sized church.
Right. And define mid-size for us. I see it in the notes, but you tell the audience what you're talking about.
Yeah, and obviously, when I'm going to say this, is some people say, well, that's a big church, and it's true, but I tend to define mid-size as 150 to 300 people on a smaller campus, 3 to 7 acres. So we have 4.5 acres at West Bradenton, and we somehow cram 650 people on average on a Sunday morning on those 4.5 acres. I wish we had a little more. I have parking lot envy a lot of times when I go visit other churches.
Yeah. I did some study, and I'd have to go way back, Sam. I don't have it here, and I'm not really worried about finding it. I did some study sometime back that found the mid-sized church had the highest conversion rate as well. So maybe I can dig that up at some point, and we can review it. But basically, I did conversion ratios and pick samples of the 3 groups of churches: small, mid, and large. And I don't remember what my parameters were, but I bet it was very close to what yours are. But nowadays, many people would consider a church of 250 a large church. I know that we at Church Answers just finished a consultation with the Global Methodist Church in North Carolina, whose attendance when we started was 250, 275, has grown since then, but it's considered a large church in that tribe. And I think that's more and more the same, but I still get what you're saying. The principles are right here for the mid-sized church. This isn't a megachurch. It's not large church in the recent historical sense.
Even though the median church size is 60, 65 people, most people would say that's a small church, even though
Right.
that's the median.
Right.
And then most people say a megachurch or a church of 1,000 is a really big church. So I'm saying mid-size. I'm using this term very, very loosely. In fact, it's probably an improper statistical label. It's not really mid-size if it's well over the median, double the median. But I think that's how most people would label it.
And I think it's fair. It's probably fair to call it one of the larger mid-sized category churches because of the characteristics that you're going to be talking about in this podcast of the advantages of it. So I'll leave that to you to begin.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about a mid-sized campus, they're large enough to accommodate growth, but small enough not to be completely overrun with deferred maintenance. And a lot of times the campus is a key part of this as well. When you're talking about just mid-size advantage, our campus is 62,000 square feet, and I would not want one more square foot. I mean, that is about as big as I would want a church to be. And I realize that there's some thriving churches that are 500,000 square feet and they've done very well for themselves. And I say, hey, that's awesome. I'm just talking about my perspective and my preference here. And, it's hard to manage. I manage 62,000 square feet. It's hard to manage that. There's always something wrong. In fact, we're still doing this air conditioning project. And the last Sunday, we had a part of the system that went out because we're transitioning systems. And we had to get a portable AC unit and pipe in like all of this air. It was a big hassle. I can't imagine if you multiplied our campus times 10, what that would be like. There's always something. So one of the advantages that a mid-sized church has is a mid-sized campus. As long as you don't have deferred maintenance. Now, Dad,
Remember
what is
church growth
deferred maintenance?
Well, first of all, don't forget Church Growth Services has that download, the ebook on deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
Then I'll define it, but they have that free ebook, deferred maintenance, and we'll link it in the show notes. But it's a great resource. Now, to answer your question, what is deferred maintenance? It is maintenance that should have been done that hadn't been done, and it begins to pile up on you. If you're maintaining the church, that means everything is current, everything is repaired. Just as an example, I don't know if you know this, but I've served on an HOA board. Did you know that?
I remember that season of your life. It was one that I think we would both rather forget.
Absolutely. And one of the problems that this multiple unit area had was there was so much deferred maintenance that was owned by the HOA. And so one of the things we had to do was get deferred maintenance paid for and then begin to reserve for it so we wouldn't be deferred again. But deferred maintenance for a church means, hey, you should have been paying these bills to keep this air condition going or painting the exterior or a new roof when it was time instead of patching it up indefinitely. That becomes deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance inevitably costs more than current maintenance.
Yeah, we're renovating our second floor right now, which is our student floor. And the contractor was walking me through all of the updates that they're doing. And he goes, they kind of just did this makeshift, didn't they? And I said, it's the West Bradenton way. And we are undoing decades of the West Bradenton way. And he's like, I can tell. So we're doing it right now. When you do it wrong and when you do it cheaply, it ends up being more expensive in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of churches get into trouble with deferred maintenance. But when you're a mid-sized church, even if you do have a lot of deferred maintenance, it's easier to catch up because you just don't have as big of a facility.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the square feet. You don't have 10 buildings. You might have 3. And it's a lot easier to manage.
And
so
you could call our friends at Brown Church Development Group, that design build firm built, and they could look at it and they could say, okay, yeah, we can make this right. If it's something that's manageable, they can do it for any size, but they can really encourage you if you were looking at a mid-size size. Redundant.
Yeah, Brown Church Development Group does a lot of good work with mid-sized churches and helping mid-sized churches right-size their campus.
Yes.
How about that for a tagline? Call Brown. They'll help you right-size your mid-sized church.
Yes.
They probably won't use that in their marketing copy, but I'll say it.
So Going on about the mid-sized churches, one of the characteristics is the facility. We've talked about that. What else you see with this?
Yeah, I'd say mid-sized churches have enough people to build momentum with full programming for all ages. And this is something that, a lot of smaller churches struggle with. Now, small churches have their place and they have their advantages too. We're just talking about mid-sized churches in this podcast. But your mid-sized churches can, most of them can offer full programming, meaning I'm a family. I have a mom and a dad. We've got three kids, and the three kids just so happen to be elementary, middle school, and high school.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we've got something for everyone. We've got
You're
the
about to be
choir
there,
for
aren't you?
what's that?
You're about to be there, aren't you? Elementary, middle, and high school.
We are there. Yeah. I mean, with my kids. Yeah, I've got two in elementary, one in middle school, one in high school.
Wow.
So mom can go to choir, dad can go to his class, and the kids all have their own age segmented programming. Now, obviously, the larger you get, you've got like we've got 6 fifth-grade classes. A lot of churches are so big that, they can just break it down by age and grade in a very micro level, but at least elementary, middle school, and high school at a mid-sized church. And that is a distinct advantage because there are differences between a middle schooler and a high schooler. There's differences between, that second grader and an eighth grader.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're all together, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is more helpful to most families when they can have some age segmented ministries available to them. So that's something that a mid-sized church often has is they can offer that full programming, even if it's smaller, on a smaller scale than, say, a megachurch. It still has the full programming.
How about staff? So a small church sometimes has to have a bivocational pastor where expectations shouldn't be as great as a full-time compensated pastor. But a mid-sized church sometimes is able to add that second staff person, maybe even a third. And that's a huge, huge relief for a pastor who feels like, I'm doing this all by myself. Now they have someone else with them.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the church of 300 that has a $700,000 budget.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a pretty significant budget for a 300-person church, but there's plenty of churches out there that are in that category.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have a full-time pastor and 2 full-time people and maybe another part-time person at that level, depending on how much debt you have and what other expenses you have. And you want to talk about being able to share the load of a church. You get to where you have 2 other staff or 2.5 other staff as a lead pastor, and it is so much better. For example, we're a larger church. We're not exactly a mid-sized church, but we're nowhere near a megachurch at West Bradenton. And the giving link went down about 2 hours ago. Give.westb.org if you're interested. If you want to give to our church.
I do.
You're wondering what giving link? Well, I'm glad to tell you where it is. The forward went down. Give.westb.org was timing out. So I sent a message to our life group leader who also does technology. And though he's bivocational, he was able to get to it pretty quickly. Well, I didn't have to stop what I was doing and deal with that. When you're a bivocational pastor or the only person on staff, you have to deal with all of those things. And we talk to pastors all the time. We just had an interview, which will come out soon enough, with Ryan Burge on a Burge report, a future Burge report. And he was talking about how when he was a sole pastor, when the commode overflowed on a Saturday night, he was the one getting the shop vac out and sucking poo out of the carpet. That's just what you're doing when you're the only one. And that's hard. That's really hard in a lot of smaller churches, but mid-sized churches do have the advantage of sharing the workload with paid staff.
You may not know this since I raised you, but I really am not good with manual things that require manual dexterity. I don't know if you've ever kind of seen that.
I picked up on it.
I thought you did. First church, Hopewell Baptist Church in southern Indiana. Everything freezes over. You have layers of ice and then snow. I called up the deacons, Merle. said, Merle, we're going to have church? Yeah, why not? Well, it's kind of slippery out there, especially since the church is on a hill and it's icy and all that. He said, well, you just take care of it. Well, I was out there trying to break up ice, shovel snow off, and I worked 6 or 7 hours, and I finally got it done for the 40 or 50 at the time who showed up. But there was no, we'll be there to help you. It was like, yep, you can get it done. I couldn't have unstopped the commode. Well, we didn't have a commode at the time. We didn't have a restroom. But I couldn't have gone to the outhouse and shot the snake so somebody could go to the bathroom. But I was able to get the ice off the road.
I don't think you had a problem with snakes in the winter time.
That's
but I
true.
get the point.
That's true. The snakes were there primarily in the spring.
Gotcha.
That's why nobody used the outhouse.
All right. Mid-sized churches. Thank you for that wonderful story of frozen snakes in the outhouse.
Right.
It sounds like a B movie. You should write, you should take, you've written 42 books or whatever it is. You should write a B movie script on, some sort of story of a pastor with snakes in the outhouse. I don't know where this is going.
Back to the mid-sized church.
Back to the mid-sized church. They, tend to have adequate, maybe that may be the wrong word, but adequate children's programming,
Right.
That is appealing to millennials. And millennials are getting to the age where their kids are getting older. My youngest now are in elementary school, so they're not even in preschool, but I know I'm the oldest of millennials. So there's still plenty of millennials that have young kids, preschool age kids. And a mid-sized church can have a clean area with a decent amount of volunteers and appeal to millennials. Remember, the megachurch is a baby boomer phenomenon. So
Absolutely.
if you are a mid-sized church, you are not at a disadvantage to the big megachurch. Yes, they draw in more people. Yes, they have more bells and whistles. Yes, they have more money. But it doesn't necessarily mean that people don't want to come to your church. You likely have the ability to do children's programming well enough and to appeal to millennials.
Yep. And that programming tends to be of a decent quality. It's not such of a low quality that, we got to go to the mega church. It tends to be of a decent quality. And for many families, it feels more personal maybe than the larger church and the programming that is there.
I'm just going to brag on our children's ministry and say we have plenty of people that come from the local mega church and they experience our children's ministry and they are like, wow, you guys do this so well. Now, do we have the giant room full of people and the energy for kids? No, but we do kids in classrooms, a lot of high focus, high attention, a lot of personal attention in ways that the large church can't do. And there are plenty of people that prefer that over the programming of a large church. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm denigrating a large church. It's just we're talking about mid-sized churches that do have advantages. And then the last thing that I'll mention here is that mid-sized churches can focus on the immediate neighborhood in ways that a large regional church can't.
You're right. A large regional church, if it just focused on the immediate neighborhood, would not replace the number who are exiting. So you have to go beyond the immediate neighborhood just to stay even in a mega church.
Yeah, I call this the difference between reach and impact. And you might use some different words there, deep, wide, whatever. A large church or a mega church, a big regional church, tends to be very broad in its scope, pulling from all sorts of people from the region. So a large church that's a regional model can't focus on one high school or one elementary school, can't focus on one park system. But a mid-sized church in a neighborhood can. It can say, we're going to really focus on the high school that's right next door. We're really going to focus on the elementary school that's right next door. The park system that's right down the road where all of our members coach anyway. We're just going to be laser focused on that. And there's advantages to both. A large regional church does have a broad scope of ministry, and that's a good model. But it's also a limited model, in ways that a smaller church or a mid-sized church can be so focused that there's a greater impact. So a large church tends to have a greater reach, but a mid-sized or smaller church tends to have a greater impact on a specific area or a specific institution or a specific school.
We need to put in the show. We need to put in the show notes your book about the surprising return of the neighborhood church, because so many of the principles that you're talking about here are the principles that you elucidate in that book on neighborhood churches. Because the mid-sized church, in some cases, a smaller church, they're the ones that are truly more the neighborhood church than, say, the mega or large church.
Yeah, thanks for the promo link in the show notes. The book is The Surprising Return of the Neighborhood Church. And the last thing that I will mention actually connects our sponsor to what we're talking about. If you are a mid-sized church, there is a huge opportunity for you to get connected with the community through Upward Sports.
True.
This is their wheelhouse. Now, they can help small churches. They can help large churches. They have a scalable system. But if you're a mid-sized church and you're going, we're 150 people, we could easily grow to 300 and still have plenty of room in our parking lot. We'd love to do that. How do we better connect with our community? How do we better connect with the neighbors? How do we get children? Maybe we have some children, but not enough. How do we get families interested in our church? Upward Sports is the way to go. Whether you've got just a parking lot or a gym, doesn't matter, a field, they can help you with whatever you have. They can customize player packages for you. You can choose the sport that you want. They have many, many different sports. And you need to start planning your winter sports leagues now. Now is the time to do it. And they still have the startup grant, Dad. I can't believe they've been doing it as long as they have, but they're offering a sports startup grant of $500, which is extraordinarily generous. So you go to upward.org/church answers. Again, upward.org/church answers. Schedule your call. If you happen to be a mid-sized church and you're looking to do more in your community, this is a great way to do it. So check out Upward. We certainly appreciate their sponsorship.
Well, we appreciate everybody for being a part of Reign Our Own Leadership. We'll continue to delve into different areas every single week and sometimes some special series. And we call it Reign Our Own Leadership because there are two reigners talking about leadership issues. We'll see you in the next episode.